We have an agreement in principle. The question is, do we all have the same principles, right? So, group decision making is an art. And to make it a science, to convert that art into a science, there are certain techniques that you can follow. Now, before we go, hello and welcome to pmblounge.com. Today we are going over the group decision making techniques, and this is a part of the collect requirements process. So we are discussing the tools of the collect requirements process. Collect requirements process, of course, is a part of the scope management knowledge area. The playlist of all the videos that we have done on scope management knowledge area is available in the description. So you can go over there, check that out, and learn more about the scope management knowledge area. So the tools in collect requirements, there are a lot of tools, and we have discussed a few of them earlier, and I'll link to that in the description again. You can go over that as well. And there are certain other tools that can be used to collect while collecting requirements, and these come under the heading of group decision making techniques. So let's get started. Let's get into the thick of the things. So what is the problem statement here? The fact is that large projects will typically have numerous stakeholders, right? And it is quite possible that they have conflicting requirements. So, when you're collecting requirements, essentially you are going out, reaching out to the stakeholders and asking what their needs are, what their requirements are, right? What are their needs, so that typically you convert those needs into the requirements of your project. So you need to understand what their needs are. Now, in order to understand that, and if you have if there's a large project and there are many stakeholders, you are ultimately going to end up with numerous conflicting requirements. Somebody would want the color red and somebody else would want the color blue. This is conflicting requirement, and that's pretty basic though. But yeah, I mean, consider that you are kind of doing a project, and you are let's say um, developing a website. So while you're developing a website, you need to understand a certain the use of a certain color. One of the stakeholders says red, the other stakeholder says blue. Which one to go with, right? So these are both requirements. Which one will you select? And that is where the group decision making techniques come in. However, there are other tools like facilitated workshops and focus groups. We have discussed both of them in a previous video. I'll link to that as well in the description, so you can go over that. But then there are certain techniques that can be followed, and to ensure that the requirements are finalized in terms of the group as a whole and not just certain individuals, right? So these techniques, the group decision making techniques, right? This are going to help you make decisions on what requirement to choose between the two conflicting ones. So red and blue, classic example. Which one will you go ahead with? That is where the group decision making techniques come into the picture, and that is where, as a group, you can come up with a decision on what color to choose on. So let's look into the four techniques that we have been hyping much till now. So the first one is unanimity. Now, what does it mean, right? Unanimity means everyone in the group agrees on the decision. So red or blue, everyone in the group says it needs to be red. Even the person who was suggesting blue now agrees that it needs to be red. So there's no decision to be made, right? Everybody agrees to red. So let's go ahead with red. That kind of decision is known as unanimity. As a project manager, you need to kind of tap and uh, the you need to tap and you need to kind of poll and you need to kind of understand if unanimity can be reached. If unanimity is reached, there's a unanimous decision on something, there's no going back. That's as strong as it can get, right? The next is majority. So let's say uh, more than 50% of the folks agree with blue, then that means you'll have to go ahead with blue. That's a decision of the majority. By definition, majority is that more than half of the group agree on a certain decision, right? So again, yeah, that's the typical definition of majority. That's typically what we see in politics, right? And then comes plurality. Now, plurality is the idea with the most number of votes win. So this is where when you're having a local election, right? You simply count on the number of votes. Whosoever has the most number of votes, they win. They might not have the majority of the votes. They might not have the unanimity in the votes, but the highest number of votes, that's where plurality comes into the picture. So the highest number of votes, they win. So uh, if there are, let's say, more than two color options in our previous option of red and blue, if there were options where red, blue, black, and white, and there are 10 people to vote on, if there are three votes for red, and that is the let's say you've got three votes for red and you've got four votes for blue, and then you've got two and one for black and white respectively. Of course, four is not a majority. Four is not even far away from unanimity. So four is less than majority, right? But out of 10, four is the one which has the most number of votes. So that wins. And the final one is dictatorship, which is something that is looked down upon and something that is not suggested and something that should be avoided as much as possible. Dictatorship is when one person makes the decision in the group. So there's only one person, he makes the decision, and the group needs to go ahead with it. So uh, as a project manager, that's definitely something you should definitely avoid. If you're the sponsor of a project, if you're the one who's putting the money down, maybe you can, in certain situations, um, exert that kind of power and show that kind of power and display such kind of power and display this skills and tactics of this dictatorship and put it down that this is the requirement and this is what the team has to follow. So the team might have to follow it since you're the sponsor and putting down the money. As a project manager, well, there could be certain conditions where your team cannot meet a certain, let's say, certain functionality cannot be added to the project and you know it. You might be, you know you might have to make use of the dictatorship skills and let everyone know that this is something which is not at all possible. So these are the four group decision making techniques. You've got unanimity, majority, plurality, and dictatorship. That's all that we had in this video. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, and check us out on our social media, facebook.com/pmplounge and twitter.com/pmplounge. And as always, do check out the website pmplounge.com, your number one free resource for PMP certification, as well as project management industry information, wherein we've covered several reports. Um, Go to the playlist section of our channel, and you'll definitely find them very helpful. Thank you.